Riddick and Dan Graziano. I'm Field Yates, and training camp is finally here for 3 teams this week. On Thursday, the Steelers and Cowboys, who will play in the Hall of Fame game on August 5th, will hit the practice field. Then on Sunday, the reigning Super Bowl champion Buccaneers start practice as they open the season against Dallas on September 9th. All 22 Super Bowl starters are set to return for Tampa Bay. For the other 29 teams, they'll have to wait a few extra days until July 27th to get going. 7 squads will be led by first-time NFL head coaches. Well, let's talk about the biggest storyline for the 3 teams who are starting right now this week. Lewis, we'll begin with you in Tampa Bay.
But yeah, Phil, I think naturally the conversation automatically drifts towards Tom Brady. And at this point in time, given the fact that they have 22 starters returning from their Super Bowl championship run last year, expectations are very high for them to repeat. But Tom Brady's 43 years old, going to be 44 years old. How much longer can you expect him to continue to perform at such a high level of efficiency when it comes to yards per attempt, completion percentage, touchdowns? I'm just anxious to see how he does in 2021.
So Steelers fans and everyone else is excited to see first-round draft pick running back Najee Harris. But for me, I want to see what this new look, rebuilt offensive line in Pittsburgh looks like, because if they don't perform better at both run blocking and pass protection, but particular run blocking this year, Harris isn't going to go anywhere and it won't be his fault.
Mina, for the Cowboys, I think the big story is obviously going to be quarterback Dak Prescott. How does he look coming back off of that significant and gruesome ankle injury that ended his season early last year? The Cowboys say he will be full go at the start of training camp, but we'll get a chance to see how he's moving around on that leg and also how healthy his offensive line looks. Because remember, that line fell apart due to injuries last year as well, and that really hurt the Cowboys' chances of success once Dak was out.
Well, as Graz said, a lot of health questions in Dallas, and Lewis, none more so than Dak Prescott. What have you seen so far from the Cowboys star quarterback?
Yeah, Phil, I think in the clips that we have seen of Dak performing this offseason when he's been out on the football field actually executing football movements, look, you see a noticeable limp as far as his ability to move outside the pocket, throw on the move, and be mobile within the pocket. And look, that concerns me a little bit, simply because of the fact that expectations are so high for this young man, so high. And look, I understand that comes with the territory when you're on the Dallas Cowboys, and in particular the Dallas Cowboys quarterback. But look, I just want to see him be able to protect himself, move around within the pocket, and be able to create those explosive plays down the field that we've become accustomed to. And until I see him moving with a more natural gait and not that pronounced limp, I'm going to have some concerns, because I think we all want to see Dak excel. We want to all see Dak play at the highest level like he was through the first month of the season in 2020. And we know that the Cowboys need him to play that way if they're going to meet what these lofty expectations are for them year after year after year in the run-up to the regular season.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of pressure on Dak, and it's not because of the contract. It's because the defense is so bad in Dallas. I mean, look, there might be improved under new defensive coordinator Dan Quinn. I'll talk about that in a second. But for this team to actually contend, the offense needs to be spectacular. If Dak is healthy, given all of the skill players they have, and if the offensive line is healthy as well, this could be a top 5 offense in the league. But it's not like Dak's coming back and joining Washington or New York, some of the teams with better defenses in this division, really throughout the NFL. He's coming back to a team where he's going to have to score 25, sometimes 30 points or more to win games. So there's a tremendous onus on him because of the personnel issues in that defense. Really at every level, I see holes, question marks. Dak's got his work cut out for him, and so does Dan Quinn.
Yeah, it definitely makes me scratch my head when the conversation surrounding Dallas always just centers in on the offense and centers in on the perimeter players, as if there aren't other positions on this football field or aren't other units, other phases of this football team that quite honestly are the ones we should be talking about. And Mina, you're exactly right. I mean, on the defensive side of the ball, you have a new defensive coordinator. They drafted 6 consecutive players on the defensive side of the ball in 2020, or rather in 2021, heading into this football season, that are being counted on, rookies that are being counted on to make vast improvements on that side of the football. And I think those expectations are unreasonable, just like the expectations surrounding Dallas are unreasonable anyway. So I think that is where our focus needs to be all year long. It's where it will be all year long. I think Dak will handle his business, although I'm just concerned about that lower leg injury. That's what makes this the football season that, quite honestly, is one of the most interesting that we've seen maybe in the past 10, 15 years for me, because of some of these types of newsworthy items that we're going to be discussing all year long.
Lewis, I mean, just looking at that depth chart that flashed, like Kelvin Joseph, who some people saw maybe as a bit of a reach when Dallas drafted him, he's earmarked starting opposite Diggs, who improved, granted, as the season went on last year, but he's the number one cornerback in this group. I mean, there are just so many issues in that secondary. Micah Parsons, they took the best player available, I thought the best defensive player available in the draft, which is excellent, and I imagine he's going to be, you know, ultimately the quarterback of this defense. He's a tremendous blitzer. He can bring pressure. But around him in that front seven at defensive tackle, we saw that was such a challenge last year, other than DeMarcus Lawrence, who's the mainstay, the opposite edge rush. Like, I just don't have any solid answers as to who is going to do what on this defense.
You know, at least for now, there are many more questions than answers defensively in Dallas. And a reminder, the Cowboys open up the NFL season along with the reigning Super Bowl champion Buccaneers on September 9th. The clock is ticking, especially with training camp just around the corner. And one of the talking points that will be surrounding the NFL will be the percentage of players per team that are vaccinated as we get into a developing story. While the NFL has stopped short of requiring vaccines, a message of encouragement has been clear, and not being vaccinated could potentially have a direct impact on teams. Here's Hall of Fame wide receiver Michael Irvin, who had this to say about the matter. If you're, quote, if you're not one of them teams at the threshold, are you really thinking about winning a championship? You see what I'm saying? Okay, so now if you're not getting vaccinated and you got all these other teams that are getting vaccinated, somebody in that damn locker room should say, quote, hey man, we're going to have a chance. Are you vaccinated? All right, Graz, let's turn to you. What will players find when they show up to camp in terms of the differences of being vaccinated versus unvaccinated?
The differences are going to be significant in terms of what your life will be like as a vaccinated player versus an unvaccinated player in the NFL this season. The requirements for unvaccinated players, daily testing, mask wearing at the facility, limited numbers of people allowed in the weight room if you're in there. You can't attend in-person meetings, can't use the cafeteria. If you're unvaccinated, it's going to look like it did last year. If you're vaccinated, a lot, if not all of those requirements are going to be loosened. So think about, you're an unvaccinated player. You have to show up at 6 in the morning to get your COVID test every day, and you have to sit in your car and wait for the result before finding out whether you can go into the building. Then you see your vaccinated teammates roll in around 8 a.m. for the 8 a.m. meeting, and they've got 2 extra hours of sleep than you did. I think the league is hoping, while it didn't require vaccinations, that it's doing enough to incentivize them, and I think there's a hope that some of those percentage numbers will go up once guys get to training camp and see how significant that difference is.
Yeah, just a few days away from players realizing that reality. Mina, what do you make of Michael Irvin's comments?
I agree with them. I mean, I would hope players are getting vaccinated because, as you saw that poster, that NFL poster say, they want to protect their teammates, protect more vulnerable people, protect themselves. Obviously, there's a scientific consensus that this is safe, and that if you do get sick, you're going to get less sick because of it. But if not for any of those reasons, the notion that you should get vaccinated to help your team makes perfect sense, help your team compete, because in the NFL, it's a cliche, but it's true. The best ability is availability, and if you test positive or increase the likelihood that you're going to test positive, you are actively hurting your team, and I think that's a message that coaches across the league are likely conveying to their players.
Yeah, how interesting and quite frankly sad it is that we have to boil this all the way down to the explanation, or rather the reasoning of, look, if you get vaccinated, it's easier on you to be able to give yourself a competitive advantage on par with the rest of your teammates that can then enable us to go out and possibly win championships. Forget about the fact that it may keep you from getting sick, or potentially, getting gravely sick, or getting your, family members sick, or other members of society sick. At the very least, it'll help us win football games. So maybe you should consider getting the. I mean, how sad is that? That's what we've come to. That it's not enough It's not enough incentive to protect yourself from getting gravely ill or one of your loved ones if, in fact, they aren't vaccinated. It'll just help you win a football game.